Hello, Shiver Seekers. Are you ready to follow us into the unknown? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm Stephanie. You have found the Dark Oak.
And today I'm going to tell you all about the truly disturbing murder of Elizabeth Barraza.
I've seen the video.
This one's rough, so stick around for this one. I think it's solvable.
Welcome to the Dark Oak, the mystery podcast with purpose. Each month through our charity, the Branch of Hope Foundation, we give a portion of earnings from our Patreon and sponsors to a nonprofit organization related to the first episode of the month. That's this episode, by the way. If you'd like more information, head to our website, thedarkoak.com, our Instagram account, The Dark Oak Podcast, or stay to the end of this episode and we'll give you all the details.
And it's a little weird today because I'm not looking at Stephanie's beautiful face right across from me.
It's a virtual recording.
It is. Poor Stephanie has a little cold.
And you know why? You know why I wound up getting this head cold? Listen, it's not COVID. It's not the flu. It's just a head cold. So it's just enough where I'm functioning, but not enough to actually accomplish anything. And the reason is, it's because my husband and my children are out of town. And this was my week to do all those projects that I've been planning to do for the past 4 months. And now I'm not doing them.
That's the biggest bummer. It was like for a busy mom to have a whole week to herself. You know, that to-do list is long. And then to just be just under the weather, you feel like you have to be doing something, but you feel terrible. Yeah, that's stinky.
But of course, this was the right call for the two of us because, obviously we're trying to be super safe for your family, which I am all for.
Yes. So I haven't publicly shared this yet. I'm going to try not to cry. I'm already tearing up. My mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer pretty much right after we started this podcast, the month after we started this podcast. So our family has been going through that journey for the last going on 2 years now. She's doing well, but it's been rough. But we are obviously very, very careful about spreading germs. And I just like to be extra safe and not worry about bringing back even a cold for someone who is fighting so hard. And she's so full of faith and she has such a beautiful attitude about it. And she's stayed so graceful and she's just been a delight. Everybody else seems to be struggling more than she is because she has just such a beautiful attitude about it. But, it has been very difficult for our family. So if you would keep our family and especially my mom in your thoughts and prayers, we would appreciate that more than I can say.
You Shiver Seekers have just been such a delight and such a little ray of sunshine for us and other areas of our life. So I can't imagine that this would be any different. So speaking for Cynthia, we appreciate all of your love and support and prayers, anything you can send us.
Absolutely. Keep them coming. We feel the love.
Never enough.
Okay, Stephanie. Well, as I mentioned at the top of the episode today, I'm going to be sharing the facts of Elizabeth Barraza's murder. And Stephanie, you know better than anybody how I get drawn into any case where there's surveillance footage. And today's Branch of Hope case is no exception. However, I will say that even for someone who, again, given what we do, doesn't consider myself very squeamish, this video was actually really hard for me to watch. And that is because the footage that we have shows Liz's actual murder.
I think it's a little wild that we just had Paula's case just last week become one of our most downloaded cases, which I'm so pleased about because, again, we're still in contact with the family. Oh, and actually, we've gotten 3 additional podcasts that we've reached out to after our coverage that have agreed to cover Paula's case. But I think it's really interesting that you and I were kind of separately working on these cases, but both of them have these really compelling videos, I guess, attached to them. Now, Paola's certainly doesn't indicate murder, but it's a very odd video. And then you have this video for Elizabeth of, I mean, it's not only her murder, but there are some strange things happening in the video too. So it's just kind of wild that we have two cases that one of the important pieces of evidence in the cases are both these videos.
And listeners, if you have not checked out Paola's case, you have to go listen to that. I think it's solvable,
Oh,
but we
I
just have
absolutely
to,
agree.
yes, we just have to get more attention on it, get the right people looking at it. Please check out that episode, share it, tell your favorite creators to share it. We really feel for this family and would love to see them get some answers that they've been working really, really hard for.
There's even some additional interest within the YouTube community. There were several vloggers that were like boots on the ground, if you will, right after Paola disappeared. But since there hasn't been a lot of movement in the case, they've moved on to help other families, understandably so. But now that we've come and started piecing more things together and now gotten other podcasts involved, and, you know, it's just that energy, you know, it just leads to more synergy. So now they've actually started recovering the cases and going over like, okay, what could we have missed, and re-interviewing the family. And it's so incredibly encouraging to my heart, because like I said, it was a passion project, but also for you and I, because again, this was something that happened again in our own backyard.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled to see the renewed interest. And like I said, I really think it's solvable. I know that case is so close to your heart. And I think you've done such an amazing job of spreading the awareness for her family and for her.
I'm not done. You guys are going to hear about this all the time in our Facebook lives. I'm probably always going to have like, and what's happening with Paola? Because this is one of those cases that's just, it needs more investigation. It just does.
It
So
does.
until that happens, I'm going to be the mouthpiece for that, as so many others are also doing. It's, again, if you haven't listened to the case, go check it out, guys. And then this case is also one, I mean, it's not as personal to us because we don't have that, you know, geographic proximity, but this is one too that could also be very solvable.
I think this case is so solvable. And as I share the details with you, I'll be interested to see if you still feel that way. I feel like we might be closer to solving this case than anybody's really let on. That's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. Well, tell me what you know.
Okay. Going back to the video, like I said, the video does show her actual murder. And in order to feel really comfortable bringing this case today, I did watch the footage several times so that I could describe exactly what I was seeing, because as Stephanie mentioned, there's some interesting stuff going on in this video leading up to Liz's attack. So I did watch the footage several times, but I just want anybody who goes looking for this video to be prepared for what they're going to see. Now, we are going to put an edited version up on our Instagram so that you don't see the actual attack, but you can see a lot of what I'm talking about that happened prior. So just know that we will have that available to you, and just be careful if you do any searching on your own for this video. Just make sure you understand what you're going to be seeing.
Yeah. And I'll work on that probably after we finish this recording, working on editing that video to take out specifically disturbing parts, but still leaving in the parts that someone could recognize the assailant, you know, could recognize the perpetrator.
Now, I also want to draw attention to a website, whokilledlizbarraza.com. And this is the source where I got most of the information for this episode. Liz's parents run this website, so I felt like it was a safe place to get the most accurate information. Liz was born Elizabeth Marie Newell on June 26, 1989, to parents Rosemary and Robert Newell. Her family lived in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, and she had an older brother also named Robert. Throughout her life, Liz lived in Illinois, Missouri, here in Florida, where the Dark Oak is based, and in Texas. And being from Illinois, the Chicago Cubs were her favorite baseball team, and she was a huge fan of the Harry Potter franchise. So I know there are different levels of fans. There's book fans, there's movie fans, but Liz was one of those. She always had to read the books first, and then after she did that, she would be open to listening to them as audiobooks or watching the movies.
Are
Are
you
you?
into Harry Potter?
No. However, I did just go to the Universal Harry Potter Wizarding World, uh,
Yeah.
and it was pretty cool. It made me kind of want to give it another try. I tried reading the first book. It just didn't get me. It just didn't pull me in. But I obviously there's such a huge fan base. I feel like I'm the one who's missing something. How about you?
Yeah, same. So I did not read the books, but somehow they missed me when I was younger. And so I've been waiting until my kids are a little older so that we can kind of all experience them together. But I know for true Harry Potter fans, I mean, there is a real association. Like, I'm in this school or club. What are the groups? They're like certain group, like Slytherin and
Oh, yes.
Gryffindor. And listen, I know I have fully offended every single Harry Potter fan by just saying it like that. I'm getting there, guys. It's just baby steps for me. So I will get it, and then I will correct myself. But I know I've seen people wearing shirts of, the group they're in.
After going to Universal, my sister's a fan, and that's who I went with. We took the test. She already knew that she was a Slytherin, but I am a Ravenclaw.
Oh, and I
Yeah,
say
and
that
after
like it means something to me, which it doesn't, but eventually it will.
I didn't know what it meant either, but then after looking up all the different traits, I was like, "Oh, I am for sure a Ravenclaw." Yes. So,
Oh, can you
yeah,
peg me? What am I? Do you know them well enough?
girl, no, I don't. I don't. I might say my first guess would be that you're either a Gryffindor or a Hufflepuff would be my assumption, but I am no expert.
Okay. Just from the sounds of them, they both sound acceptable, so I'll let you know.
Yeah. Oh, take the test. There is an official test. You got to take it and then tell me if I'm
Okay,
right.
I'm on it.
Okay. Well, Liz graduated from Klein Hollins High School in 2008 and then spent her freshman year at Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas, before transferring to Sam Houston State University for the 2009 academic year. And this is where Liz met Sergio Barraza. The two would quickly fall in love, and together they adopted a dappled dachshund puppy. And I'm sharing that specifically for you, Stephanie, because I know you're a little dachshund lover. That's like your favorite dog, isn't it?
Dachshunds are my heart dog.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I currently have 3 dogs, one of which is a dachshund. And while I love my other 2 dogs, I mean, to absolute bits, they were not dachshunds. And so now we have a little troublemaking dachshund named Rascal, and we just can't get enough of him. So, yeah, they're great little dogs.
He's pretty cute, that rascal, and lives up to his name. Now, listen to Liz and Sergio, what they named their puppy Diesel. I thought that
That's a
was so
perfect name for a little doxy.
right. I thought, what a tiny little dog and such a tough name. I thought that was so cute.
I love it.
In 2012, Liz graduated with a bachelor's degree in psychology, and she married Sergio Barraza on February 1st, 2014, which means the couple would have celebrated their 11th wedding anniversary this week.
Wow.
After college, Liz worked at the Rosen Group as a data reporter, while Sergio worked with his father, Oscar Barraza Sr., as a crew chief installing flooring. Liz and Sergio purchased a home in the Princeton Place subdivision in April of 2016, and that's in Tomball, Texas. And I think I would have really enjoyed Liz and Sergio. They seemed like really fun people. They enjoyed doing things like dressing up and going to the Renaissance Festival, and Liz would make all of their costumes, and she was really, really talented. Her costumes were definitely something to be admired.
Oh,
And
that's
that
fun.
really fun, really fun. And her creative talent, her ability to do this came in very useful because Liz and Sergio were also members of the 501st Legion Star Garrison South Texas Squadron. And I will be honest, before researching this episode, I had no idea what that was. Do you know what that is?
No, it's also a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. So I'm not really a Star Wars fan, but I can absolutely appreciate the people who are. And I appreciate it even more when I learned that the 501st Legion is a world-renowned volunteer organization of the world's biggest Star Wars fans. And they create and wear approved costumes of characters from the Star Wars universe. And this Legion has over 14,000 members, and their mission is to promote interest in Star Wars, to support Star Wars related events, and to contribute to their local communities. So they do a ton of charity work. And
Oh,
Liz
that's so nice.
is so nice. And Liz was really, really into that charity aspect of the organization. She would often go to the hospital dressed as one of her two approved characters, either a biker scout or a Jawa. And she would visit people in the hospital, both adults and children. And I just think that is such a special, selfless thing to do. I feel like we live in a time where we're just so busy and it feels like every day is just go, go, go. So for someone to regularly take their time to go brighten a sick stranger's day, I think that says so much about who she was as a person.
Yeah, for sure.
Liz was so involved in this organization that she was on command staff as an event coordinator for the South Texas squad. Our story takes place in January 2019 in Tomball, Texas. The couple's 5-year wedding anniversary was coming up, so they were planning a trip here to Orlando, Florida, so that they could go visit Universal Studios and see the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, where I just was. The couple had plans to leave for Orlando on January 27th. Now, sadly, they did not get to take this trip. That's sad for all the reasons, but man, if you were a Star Wars fan and you were going to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, that would have just been magical. So they really planned this really, really special thing to do for the anniversary. It's just beautiful.
Well, and also, and what a wonderful time of year to be in Orlando. You know, we've already said multiple times how much we love where we live. Well, you would prefer for it to be a little bit cooler. But as far as things to do, we live in a fabulous place. And that time of year is just perfect for visiting.
Oh, perfect. Not too hot. It's the off season, so it's not too crowded. Yeah, really perfect time. And before leaving on their trip, Liz had what she believed was a great idea. She decided to have a garage sale to make a little extra money to use towards their upcoming vacation, specifically for souvenirs.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. And this decision appears to have been very impromptu. There was no real advertisement of this garage sale. Very few of the couple's friends and family knew that the sale was even going to be happening. Sergio said that the only people that knew about the garage sale were Liz's parents, Sergio's mom, and some of Liz's coworkers because she had taken that Friday off to actually host the sale.
Okay.
There were no social media post advertising, and it appears from everything I've read that the only notice of this sale were the 2 signs that Liz and Sergio put out on the evening of January 24th. So that's the night before the garage sale. And they put one sign at the entrance to their neighborhood and another one just down the road. These signs announced that the sale would run from the next morning, so Friday, January 25th, through Saturday, January 26th. Now, I want to stop here and just tell you this is very interesting because it seems to be pretty commonly accepted that Liz's murderer knew about this garage sale and used it as their opportunity to surprise Liz. But if very few people knew about the sale, what could that mean? Now I'm going to give you
it certainly would narrow the suspect pool.
Right. Now, I'm going to give you a timeline of events that I got off of that website, whokilledlizbarraza.com. And just so you know, these timestamps were gathered from 5 sources: a neighbor's security video, a commercial retail security video, the Barraza's Nest doorbell video, the call slip from the incident, and dash cam footage. So that's how we're able to piece together what happened on this particular date.
That seems like an enormous amount of sources, doesn't it? For just a residential street? That seems like a lot to me. I would say fortunately, but at this point we still don't know her killer, so I don't know how fortunate it is, but that does seem like a lot of sources.
Yeah, it absolutely is. We got really lucky that we were able to gather as much information as they were able to gather through these different avenues.
Absolutely. We've covered cases where they're supposed to be, it's like a retail area and they're supposed to have 5 cameras and all of them are broken. Here's this woman
Right.
just in her front yard and we managed to get all these sources. Like, I feel
Right.
like that's really fortunate.
Yes, absolutely. What we know is in the very early morning hours of Friday, January 25th, at approximately 2 a.m., a black or dark colored 4-door Nissan Frontier Pro 4X, believed to be a 2013 or newer model, was observed on neighborhood cameras driving by Liz and Sergio's home. Now, later, no one would recognize this truck as one from the neighborhood.
Okay, I'm sorry. What time was that?
That was at approximately 2 a.m.
Oh, 2 a.m. Oh,
2
shoot.
a.m.
Okay.
So the middle of the night.
Yeah.
A few hours later, at around 6:08 a.m., Liz was seen on her Ring doorbell footage leaving her house, and we know she drove to a nearby Starbucks to get a coffee. And then she was picked up on her Ring doorbell camera again, coming home at 6:16.
Girl, you got to get
And
that coffee in for our garage sale.
oh, especially at this time of day, 6 o'clock
Girl,
in the morning.
you better be chugging that coffee.
Right. What stuck out to me is I was like, wow, she was able to get to Starbucks and back in 8 minutes. She lives really close to a Starbucks. That's nice.
Yeah, I guess I didn't put that together. And also a very efficient Starbucks, right?
Right.
Like sometimes
Absolutely.
I've been in line longer than 8 minutes.
Oh, for
So
sure. Now, I will say the footage of her arriving home, you see her opening her front door, like unlocking her door and walking in. And it actually really broke my heart when I watched it because as she's opening her front door, she's making funny faces to the camera.
oh,
For Sergio,
I'm sure.
um, and I just thought it struck me that she has no idea what's about to happen.
That's rough, Cynthia. I'm feeling like a lot of the feels right now. How
It yeah,
hard.
it was really rough because I was like, "Oh, look at her. She's just going about her day. She's just making faces at her husband, being silly."
Yeah, playing with the
And
dog.
right.
And to know someone with that much spirit and that much positivity was about to be taken from this world. That's really, really rough.
Yeah, it really broke my heart a little bit because I felt like I kind of got to know her just for like a second, a little more than you do just reading the stories. Just
Of
seeing that
course.
at 6 o'clock in the morning she's flirting and joking around with her husband gives you a little insight on who she was. Now, as soon as she got home, she and Sergio began setting up for this garage sale, and they do this for the next 30 minutes from 6:17 to 6:47 a.m. And at that same time, so right at 6:47, the Nissan Frontier is seen pulling into their neighborhood and driving into the Goddard School parking lot. So I went to this school's website. It's a very small, like early childhood center. And if you look at the front of their building, you can see the houses in the background. So this school is just right outside their neighborhood.
This is
The
so
truck,
weird already.
it's weird. The truck only stays in the school parking lot for about 10 seconds before leaving. And then we don't really know where they go, but we're presuming that they're concealing on a different nearby street inside the neighborhood.
You know what this is reminding me of is that strange vehicle that was in the Missy Beavers case, where we're not sure if it was related, but it's also super strange in a parking lot right next to the murder scene. Weird, right?
It's funny you say that because this case gets compared to Missy Beaver's case quite a lot because there are a lot of parallels. with the surveillance video and just kind of the weird behavior.
Yeah, and like early morning stuff
Right.
and weird. Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
And I will say Missy Beavers gave me a weird feeling too. So yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about seeing someone knowing that they have minutes left to live that I just find so haunting.
Yeah.
It's just something really chilling about that to me. And I think it just kind of leaves me with that weird feeling that we get in these cases. Now, at the same time that we see the truck pulling out of that school parking lot, Sergio leaves the house in a white panel van and drives to work. So Liz is going to be manning this garage sale while Sergio's going to work.
Oh, that makes because it's Friday. That makes sense.
Right. It's Friday. Less than 4 minutes later. So less than 4 minutes after Sergio leaves the house, the Nissan Frontier comes back into view and starts heading towards the Barraza home. The
Oh,
truck
that
does a
doesn't
three.
sound coincidental.
It's weird, right?
That does
It,
not sound like a coincidence.
it
I'm not saying he necessarily had anything to do with that person showing up, but it definitely seems like somebody might have been monitoring their house, maybe.
I agree for sure. And I definitely think a lot of people do. It seems too close. Again, less than 4 minutes. It feels like whoever's driving this truck was waiting for him to leave.
I would find that so unlikely that that timing was a coincidence.
Right. I'm with you. I agree completely. Now, the truck does a 3-point turn on Cedar Walk, and that's the road that the Barrazas live on, before parking behind Liz's car. So they kind of pass her house and then do a 3-point turn to turn around and face the other direction. And when they do, they park behind Liz's car. And then the driver gets out of the truck and begins walking towards the driveway where Liz is now alone and she's still setting things up. Now, the neighbor across the street is one of our sources. So their home had security cameras, and this entire interaction is caught on camera. So at 6:52 a.m., you can hear Liz say good morning. And it's most people's opinion that she gives this greeting in a way that you would if you did not know the person who's walking up to you. So if you were hosting a garage sale and a potential customer walked up, this might be how you greeted them.
Okay.
There's a muffled sound for about 6 seconds where it appears that the driver is speaking to Liz. No one's really been able to definitively make out what they think is being said. Now, some people believe they hear certain things, and you can definitely go down a Reddit rabbit hole if you're so inclined. What may have been said in this exchange, but there's never been any official statement as to here's what we believe the person said. After a few seconds, this person uses their right hand to point what we now know is a gun. You can't really tell that it's a gun in the video, but Liz appears to jump backwards in response and then to after the fact that it's a gun that they are pointing at Liz. Person does something with their left arm. Now, the first several times I watched this video, I hadn't done any research at all on the case. So I really did not know anything at all. My first impression was that the person took their left arm and almost rested it on something. I know in one doorbell from the Barraza home, you can see there's a treadmill in the driveway. So like maybe this person was just resting their arm on something. Fuzzy. It looks like there could have been something vertical. I don't know. That's just what I saw when I knew absolutely nothing about the case. A lot of people who see this footage believe that the killer took their left hand and handed something to Liz or showed something to Liz with their left hand. And that's what we're seeing. And when I went back and watched with that idea in mind, that makes so much more sense. But the
Okay.
point is, it's hard to determine what exactly we're seeing here.
Well, if they had handed something to Liz, wouldn't she have had it with her?
Well, that's the thing. If the killer handed something to Liz, it's never been reported that anything was found with or on her.
Oh,
True. And I'll tell you with this case, and we'll talk about it more when we get to theories. I feel like the police, I think I mentioned this at the top of the episode, I feel like authorities might have a better idea of what happened here than they're letting on. So
Okay.
if there was something, a note or who knows what, that might be something that they are not releasing for
They're
whatever
keeping
reason.
something close to the vest. Yeah. Okay.
Right. After about 6 seconds of interaction, there are 3 shots fired quickly into Liz. You hear her scream, you see her stumble, and then fall backwards. And once she is laying on the ground, the killer walks up to her, leans over her, and shoots her point blank in the face before turning and running back to their truck and speeding away.
It's horrible.
It's
Horrible.
so horrible. And not that shooting somebody, chest, it's not that the first 3 shots were not also horrible. They were. But all I kept thinking when I watched the person lean over her and shoot her in such close range, and all the shots were very close range, but that one specifically, all I could think of is what a coward. Like, she's literally down on the ground, defenseless. And you just and shoot her in the face. Like,
Listen, want her dead. I think that's what we
yes,
could take away from this. Like, there was no
yes,
doubt. This person, whoever it
no doubt.
was, wanted Liz to not be alive anymore.
Right. Police investigated the scene. They noticed there were no shell casings left behind. And you can see on the footage, the killer does not stop to pick up any casings. So this has led authorities to believe that a revolver was used because revolvers don't eject shells like a semi-automatic or an automatic handgun would.
Right.
And this has led some to believe that the killer may have been a hired hitman who used a revolver in an effort to not leave any clues behind. And I think that's definitely a possibility.
So far, that's where my head's going in this situation.
Well, here's what came to my mind. I heard the word revolver. I have personal knowledge that revolvers don't require the same kind of hand strength that an automatic or a semi-automatic handgun does when you're trying to cock it. So if you've ever shot a semi or an automatic handgun, some of them really require a lot of strength to pull that slide back. I wonder if perhaps the use of a revolver could point to the shooter possibly being female. And I say that because I can tell you from personal experience, I have held firearms where I literally could not pull that slide back. I just physically could not get it back. But on a revolver, you don't have to do that. Now, obviously, there's lots of women who can cock a gun with no problem. I'm just not one of them. So that's where my mind went when I heard the word revolver.
Someone who's also fired both and a woman, I can't say that I struggled with either of them. What I will say, though, is a revolver for me was just always more convenient because they're smaller. They're easier to deal, I guess. I mean, it depends on the weapon in both scenarios. I have revolvers that are incredibly hard to load, and maybe it just depends on the weapon. I don't know.
It could be. And I will say, okay, I love that we have different perspectives on that. I love that.
The majority of women I know that have concealed carry permits do have revolvers just because they're not as heavy. You have to have a certain amount of strength to fire any weapon. I mean, even those revolvers, if you don't handle them correctly, you could hurt yourself.
Oh, sure. Sure. Well, I think part of why I was like, could this particular firearm point to the killer being female? Because of what this killer looked like.
Okay, and maybe that's it. Maybe it's several data points that are making you think female.
It definitely wonder if this killer was a female for a multitude of reasons, the revolver just being one of them. Because what I see when I look at this video, to me, it looks like a woman with long dark hair. And what to me, again, upon my first watching of the video, not knowing anything else, no backstory, to me, it looked like this person's wearing a hospital gown. I asked my husband to watch the video and I gave him no backstory. And he said he thought the killer looked like a woman in a robe. I think it comes from the fact when this person turns around and runs back to their vehicle, it appears that the front of the the gown, the robe, the trench coat, whatever it is they're wearing, it opens up in a way that a robe or trench coat would in the front. But authorities think this is part of a disguise. And perhaps the long dark hair we are seeing is a wig. Authorities
Oh,
also
okay.
think, yes. And it's also believed the killer is wearing knee high white boots, again, potentially as part of a disguise. I watched this video. To me, the shooter, despite what they're wearing, or not just because of what they're wearing, even the silhouette looks female. But again, that could absolutely have been purposeful if this was a disguise. A male trying to look like a female. And I will say that on the muffled video footage, when we do hear the killer talking, to me, it does sound like a man's voice. So to me, it looks like a woman, sounds like a man, but in full transparency, both the sound and, quality are really not great. So that's just what I'm seeing. It doesn't mean any of it is accurate.
Well, and both can be true. It could look like a woman and sound like a man because it was a man wearing woman's clothes. So
Exactly. Exactly. I do find it very interesting other people's opinions on what they are seeing here. And what I learned by doing that is really everything is so subjective. Because I heard one person say the shooter appears to be very knowledgeable with guns, given their body language and how they're holding the gun. I heard another person say the shooter was obviously very unfamiliar with fire, knew what they are doing. My husband I asked Andy, and he said, to him, it looked like the shooter maybe had some experience, but definitely didn't seem to be an expert. It looked like they kind of struggled with the kickback. So my point is, I think if 10 people were watching this video, we may get 10 different opinions of what we're actually looking at. And I just found that interesting. This is what we have. So,
isn't it so
if
wild? Here you have all this footage, and yet we're struggling to make heads or tails of it. It's
right,
so
like
maddening.
I'm
It's
seeing
so
somebody prop their
maddening, Cynthia.
I just find it so interesting. And I think that's part of what people get so wrapped up on in this case is because there are so many possibilities. And here we have this footage that in some ways is so very clear. I mean, we literally have footage of her murder, but at the same time, we're left with so many questions about what
Yeah.
we're even seeing. And, it can be really frustrating. Now, remember, we're in a residential neighborhood and it's almost 7 a.m. So at this point, people are up, they're definitely moving around. So 3 different neighbors heard the gunshots and called 911. But the neighbor who lived across the street from the Barraza home heard the gunshots and saw the Frontier speed away. And then 58 seconds into that 911 call, he saw the Frontier drive back past the Barraza home.
Ew.
Weird, right?
You just totally described this woman getting gunned down in her own driveway, which is absolutely horrific. But somehow the van driving back by the scene is almost weirder. I don't know. I don't like any of this.
It is weird, and I'm not sure what.
Was there no other outlet? Like, was it a cul-de-sac?
Okay. The information I got from whokilledlizbarraza.com was that the surveillance footage confirmed that at 6:55 a.m., the murderer drove out of the Princeton Place subdivision, but then did a U-turn to re-enter the neighborhood. And then just as the neighbor reported, the truck was captured on Liz's doorbell cam passing back by her house. So that's according to the whokilledlizbarraza.com. Because I thought the same thing. Did they get turned around? Did they not know how to get out of the neighborhood?
Yeah,
But
I was going to say,
according
was
to
that
this,
the only way out? Yeah, but so there's
right,
no like physical reason for them to have to drive back past the house. Like they could have
correct.
driven a different way, but they purposely drove back by the house, and that is so disturbing.
So strange. And the only thing that really makes sense to me, and I've heard this, reported in other places, so it's not just my idea, but was the killer driving back by to make sure that Liz was not getting up. I can't think of any other reason. And even that seems strange because I think it's risky. Honestly, I think it's risky to, because if the neighbor was 58 seconds into their 911 call, it means that a minute went by since the initial gunshots, at least a minute. And that's a long time
No, to
to
me, it's just
stay
further
on scene.
confirmation. Yeah, to me, it's just further confirmation that this person really wanted Liz dead.
Right. Right.
Like, who did Liz piss off? Like, what is going on here?
Right. Now, the truck would continue to be tracked on several commercial cameras, but was eventually lost in an area with no camera coverage. And then, only 3 minutes after the truck drove back by Liz's home, Harris County Precinct 4 constables arrived on the scene. Three
Wow, that's
minutes they missed
fast.
that truck.
Oh,
When they
man.
went into the Barraza home, they set off the alarm that Liz had set to instantly trigger if a door was opened. So this tells us that Liz was probably a pretty safety conscious person. I did read somewhere where Sergio may have told her, hey, make sure you set the alarm.
I will say, so I've done several garage sales, and garage sale people are different. So I've had some where it's very clear that the quote garage sale, I know it's called a garage sale, but like it's clearly a yard sale. Like,
Right.
we're out in the driveway, we're in the yard, it's a yard sale, and like we have a little setup in the garage, right? Like there's some chairs and drinks and stuff for the people manning the garage sale. I can't tell you how many people have just walked in and started picking up like my lawn equipment, and they're like, how much for this? And I'm like, it's clearly not part of the sale. So I wonder if this was something they did regularly, like set this alarm, or was it like, you know what? In an abundance of caution, let's just make sure that nobody wanders in the house since we're inviting people onto our property.
That was my thought. My thought was, she did leave the door inside the garage unlocked. So the door was unlocked, but the alarm was set. So my thought was maybe she did that so if anyone tried to force her inside the house, an alarm would go off. Or if anyone else tried to get inside the house, say while she was preoccupied with a customer, the alarm would go off. I
It's
took
very
it as
smart.
she knows she's going to be having strangers on her property. So she
It's
set the
very
alarm.
smart. Yeah, it's very
Very
smart.
smart. And it was that alarm that notified Liz's parents that something was wrong. You know how your alarm goes off and the alarm company will call you and ask for a password or something to
Yep.
verify it's not a real emergency?
Yep.
I'm assuming Liz had her parents on that call list. So maybe if the company couldn't reach Liz or Sergio, the next call would go to her parents because we know her parents were notified of the alarm. They knew she was having a garage sale that day and that Sergio was going to be at work. So after receiving this phone call from the alarm company, they called Liz. And when she didn't answer, they drove straight to her house.
Okay. Wow. That's very attentive. That's awesome.
Right. Now, I did not get this information from the Who Killed Liz Barraza.com, which again is that website manned by her parents. So again, I put that as like the top source because I just feel like it's firsthand knowledge. But I did see in some sources that during all of the commotion, Sergio began having conversations with authorities through the Ring doorbell cam. Like he could see that first responders were on the property and he, was asking what's going on, what's wrong. And they wouldn't tell him exactly what had happened, but they told him he needed to come home. So that's kind of happening simultaneously as well. Liz
Yikes.
was life flighted, right? How I can only imagine the panic I would be feeling if I could see that something was going on. I know my wife is outside hosting a garage sale alone. It's early in the morning and
Yeah.
first responders are showing up and not telling me what's going on. That I could send myself
So,
into a panic just even thinking about that.
as someone who knows you pretty intimately at this point, I can confirm that you would be, I mean, very upset. But honestly, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? I mean, this is disturbing.
Right, right. Yeah, that this is a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Liz was life flighted to Memorial Hermann, and just moments after their daughter was transported, Rosemary and Bob Newell arrived at her home and finally learned what happened to their daughter. At 7:38 a.m., Sergio Barraza also arrived back at his house after also being, notified of the alarm and having those conversations with law enforcement, and he was detained for questioning. Now, I will say he didn't get there till 7:38, and a lot of people question that because, it's around 7 o'clock when the real activity starts happening. So why did it take him 38 minutes? Some people have timed out how far away he was and said he should have been there in 15 minutes. And I'm kind of paraphrasing. That might not be the exact time. But there are some people who question why it took him 38 minutes to get home if he was notified at least a half hour earlier when he wasn't a half hour away. And his response was just that, he was on a work site and he started getting the calls or getting the notifications, but didn't answer them right away. And he just got there as soon as he could, which I have no reason to not believe.
I agree. I'm with you on that.
We weren't there. So how can we say that's not true,
Sure. And it was an hour. It wasn't like 7 hours. Like, you've got to go find your boss. You've got to go find somebody else to fill in for the thing that you were doing. Because again, he doesn't know that his wife's been shot.
Right.
He doesn't know what's going on. He just knows, hey, I got to get to the house. So, but I don't know. As a responsible person, you're going to want to like do touch points and then you get home. So all that to me, I don't know that an hour is out of the realm of possibilities. Now, I can see if you think he's the prime suspect, I can see why you would think this is too long, though.
Well, and I think that's part of it. I think if you're in camp, Sergio did it. And again, we'll talk about theories. Then obviously anything that you can use as reason why he's suspicious, you'll use. And this would just be one of those things.
But without something else, I don't know that this on its own is suspicious to me.
Correct. I'm with you. Rosemary and Bob drove to Memorial Hermann downtown to be with their daughter, and they were joined by Liz's brother Robert and his wife Amanda. And as we were kind of just talking, we know that in cases like this, the first person that authorities look at is the spouse. So Sergio was questioned for quite a while before finally being allowed to join his family at the hospital, but he and his mother were able to make it there that afternoon. So they kept him for quite a bit of time, questioning him. Now, unfortunately, it became clear that there was nothing that could be done to save Liz. The last point blank shot to her face was not survivable. So that afternoon, Sergio and Bob spoke with Life Gift about organ donation options, and arrangements were made for Liz to continue in death what was so important to her in life, helping others.
What an incredible thing to do in such a horrible time in your life.
On Saturday, January 26, 2019, 29-year-old Liz Noel Barraza was pronounced dead by the trauma team. The Life Gift team assumed control of her care to prepare her for organ donation, while her family and close friends maintained a presence at her bedside. And when the transplant team took Elizabeth for donation, Sergio, along with Liz's parents, brother, sister-in-law, Sergio's mother, Margarita, and several other members of the family walked with her down the hallway. Liz's donation saved 4 lives and gave one other the gift of sight. Her organ recipients spent a combined total of 8,144 days on the transplant list. That's more than 22 years.
Wow.
I mean, that's amazing, right? It's heart-wrenching and beautiful.
It's all the things. It's all the things.
It's all the things.
Yeah.
All the things. So I wanted to share that just because I, again, think that says so much about Liz, what she was willing to give, and her family.
Yeah. What a beautiful tribute for her. I don't know if they had conversations with her prior to this about how she felt about organ donation. It sounds like they probably did because they were so quick to decide on that. But what a incredible way, to honor her and to keep her memory alive.
Liz was cremated and she was given a memorial paver at the Crime Stoppers of Houston headquarters building. Now, on the evening of February 1st, Liz and Sergio's 5th wedding anniversary, Liz's friends and family held a vigil at her home to call for justice and to publicize the case. Local media was invited and live streamed the event. Over 100 of her friends and family were present, and the vigil concluded with a lightsaber and Harry Potter wand raising while luminary lanterns were launched.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Crime Stoppers originally created a $5,000 reward, but the reward was supplemented by donations from a GoFundMe started by Oscar Barraza Jr., Sergio's brother. And the Peter Mayhew Foundation worked with Oscar to raise the total supplemental reward by $15,000, taking the initial reward up to $20,000. Let me share with you a bit about Peter Mayhew and the Peter Mayhew Foundation. Do you recognize his name? Do you know who he is?
It's ringing a bell, but no, I can't place it right now. Of course, if you hadn't asked me, I would know.
Well, Peter Mayhew was a British actor best known for portraying Chewbacca in the Star Wars film series.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense now.
Yes. He played the character in all of the live-action movie appearances from the 1977 original until 2015's The Force Awakens, before his retirement from the role. And at the age of 8, Peter Mayhew was diagnosed with gigantism, and he also suffered a genetic tissue disorder called Marfan syndrome.
Oh, okay.
And because I think Liz would have appreciated it, and because I think we need a little moment of lightheartedness, here's a little Star Wars trivia. When casting the original Star Wars in 1977, director George Lucas needed a tall actor who could fit the role of the hairy alien Chewbacca. And he originally had in mind 6'6" bodybuilder David Prowse. But Prowse wanted to play Darth Vader. So this led George Lucas, which I would too. I always want to play the villain.
I remember when my kids were growing up, they still are growing up, but when my kids were younger, my oldest always related much more with the villain character because they're cool. Like, they normally have the cool costumes. They normally are played by like brilliant actors. And I remember my husband, who's like the perpetual good guy, like he's always the mediator. He's always like trying to find like silver linings and stuff. He was horrified. He was horrified. He was like, well, what about the prince that like saves the princess? And, what about like Captain America and everything? And my oldest was like, no, but what about the guy in the black with the scar? Like, he just, and yeah, it's been a really interesting evolution over here.
I totally relate because growing up, Wizard of Oz was one of my favorites. I absolutely always wanted to play the Wicked Witch. So I was like, who else could I be? Wicked Witch all day, every day. So I get it.
I would be the witch only so I could hang out with the flying monkeys. But, that's just me.
I love the flying monkeys. Love them. They're the original minions.
Yes, that's true. I don't know if Kevin and Bob directly relate to the flying monkeys, but yeah, little henchmen. That's them.
Well, David Prowse wanting to play Darth Vader led George Lucas to cast Peter Mayhew, who was working as a hospital orderly in the emergency department at Mayday University Hospital in Surrey. Peter Mayhew was 7'4" tall and was immediately cast as Chewbacca after he stood up to greet George Lucas at the open casting call.
I did not know any of this.
Isn't this cool? I didn't know it either.
What crazy trivia this is.
I know. And I love movie trivia. So even though I'm not a Star Wars person, I love the trivia. Get this. Peter continued working as an orderly at the same hospital in between filming the entire original Star Wars trilogy. So he's filming this huge trilogy and still working as an orderly.
Wow, that's amazing.
He modeled his performance of Chewbacca after researching the behavior of bears, monkeys, and gorillas that he saw at the London Zoo. And George Lucas would say that Peter Mayhew was, quote, the closest any human being could be to a Wookiee. Big heart, gentle nature, and I learned to always let him win, end quote.
Aw, that's really sweet.
Peter started the Peter Mayhew Foundation to help children in need, leveraging his fame to raise funds and awareness for causes related to children's health and well-being, particularly those facing challenging situations, essentially using his platform as a beloved character to make a positive impact on others' lives. Through her charity work, Liz became close to Peter Mayhew, who passed away less than 4 months after Liz. So that's why the Peter Mayhew Foundation teamed up and really worked hard to raise that initial reward fund. And I just think that's so beautiful. On Wednesday, February 6, Crime Stoppers of Houston hosted a press conference to review the case and announce the supplemented reward of $20,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for Liz's death. Liz's parents, with the support of Detective Wallace Wyatt Jr., Andy Kahan of Crime Stoppers of Houston, and District Attorney Kim Ogue, conducted a GoFundMe campaign and raised the reward by $30,000 for the 3rd anniversary of Liz's murder. And the increased reward of $50,000 still stands today.
Somebody knows something.
Oh, somebody
that's
knows.
a big amount of reward money. I feel like this was a hit.
Okay, a lot of people do. A lot of people do. So on that note, let's talk theories. As I mentioned previously, it feels like the murderer knew that Liz was going to be outside, alone, hosting this garage sale. This murder feels very deliberate, meaning I don't think someone was just had an itch to kill someone and was just driving around and planning on shooting the first person they saw alone outside, right?
No, I don't get that impression at all.
The fact that this truck was in Liz's neighborhood at 2:00 in the morning, I think that points that this person knew exactly what they were going to do. But we have to go back to the fact that very few people knew about the garage sale. So who did know? Well, if we're looking at Sergio, we know the murder happened just minutes, 3, 4 minutes after Sergio left the house. And the truck was seen driving around the neighborhood in the middle of the night. So I think we can rule out Sergio as the actual shooter. I think that's obvious, right? He didn't pull the trigger. But
yeah, it doesn't mean he didn't hire someone to pull the trigger.
Exactly. And I will tell you, a lot of people look at Sergio with suspicion. And if you go onto Reddit or any of these other places where people are just giving their opinions, a lot of people think Sergio is behind Liz's murder.
I think for me to get anywhere close to that, I would need to know what a motive would be. Was he having an affair? Was there life insurance? Were they having a dispute? Did she want to have children and he didn't? Was there a family drama? Like what, at this point, they seem like a very loving couple. So I would need to know like what a motive would be to even start to consider him.
Okay. Well, here are the list of potential motives. There was a life insurance policy on Liz that Sergio was the beneficiary of. The payout was $250,000, but due to the nature of Liz's death, it doubled to $500,000.
Oh boy.
However,
okay.
So not, it's not pennies, that's a pretty good payout. However, to this day, there has been no payout, and Sergio doesn't appear to be working hard to get that payout. So if the money was a motive, I would think he'd be trying harder to claim it.
Yeah, because in situations where that was the motive, people don't even wait 24 hours the majority of the time before trying to cash in on that. So yes, I would think that's probably not the motive.
Right. And what I've seen, the reason why there hasn't been a payout yet is because the investigation's still open. Obviously, the insurance company doesn't want to pay out if Sergio is responsible for her death. However, they can't hold it forever. From the little research I did on like life insurance payout, they can't hold it forever. So they wouldn't just be able to be like, we're never going to pay this out, even though you've never been convicted. But that's where Sergio's not really fighting to have it paid out either.
Well, and that's what Sergio's not fighting to have the case closed. So Now, I don't know if
Right.
you can close it, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, it seems like there would be more hubbub about that if that was really the motive.
I agree. I agree. There was no evidence that either Liz or Sergio were having an affair. Now, Sergio did remarry after connecting with his new wife, Amber, about a year and a half after Liz's death. And again, the armchair detectives that think Sergio's guilty say, well, that's way too soon. Obviously, that's the motive. He was having an affair with Amber, which there's no evidence of. He just wasn't happy in that marriage. I mean, they didn't even reconnect, or because I think they actually went to the same school, but they were not friends, Sergio and Amber. They didn't know
Mm.
each other. So they really connected, a year and a half after Liz's death. I don't think that's too soon.
And it's not that their 5-year marriage wasn't important, but they did not share children, which does make it a little easier. I don't know. Like, again, that to me doesn't raise alarm bells on its own.
I don't think that's fast at all.
Yeah.
Sergio did say he only watched the video of his wife's murder once to see if he could recognize the killer. He's aware that a lot of people think that he killed Liz. And around the 5-year anniversary of her death, Sergio was interviewed and said, quote, I know I'm like the prime suspect in people's eyes. I know people immediately say it was the husband who did it. I understand that, but you had to know Liz and I. You had to see us. I still love her to this day. End quote. At the time of this interview, Sergio was still holding on to the Harry Potter suitcase that Liz packed for the anniversary trip they never got to share. He said he kept it because it was a time capsule of her. And Sergio went on to say that he and Amber, his current wife, connected through similar life experiences. He said, quote, I found Amber. It was about a year and a half after Liz passed away. Amber had lost her sister and we just connected. I didn't want to give up on life and give up Liz too. I know she wouldn't want me to just stop, end quote. Now, Sergio and his wife Amber have spoken with investigators numerous times. They took lie detector tests, which Sergio said they passed. And they're also still taking care of little Diesel, the dachshund. Sergio says Liz's death is still very hard to comprehend. He said it doesn't make sense. It's like I'm still living in a totally alternate reality from what I was supposed to. I drive by the
Yeah.
house every so often, looking at the life I could have had. End quote.
Tragic.
Tragic. So that's Sergio. If not Sergio, who else? Who else could have done this? Now, this is more information I didn't find on that whokilledliz.com website. And I keep saying that because there's stuff that I believe is like verified. And then there's other information that is very interesting and probably true because I've heard it reported several times, but I can't verify it. But if it's true, if it's accurate, I find it very interesting. And I want to be able to share that too, but I also want to differentiate between what her family is saying and what other information is out there.
I think that's fair. I mean, as we have seen, sometimes family members can be preferential to certain facts of the case versus other facts of the case. And some of it, I'm fully convinced they even do subconsciously. I think it's just
Sure.
human nature. And so I do think that looking at a website hosted by her family, while beneficial and helpful, and even with the best of intentions, I think it's possible for them to have errors and to be speaking from one perspective. And so I think you have to look at other sources. You just have to.
I agree. I completely agree. And I will say, Liz's family never questioned Sergio, never questioned his innocence. He even lived with them for a time after Liz's death. So there's no suspicion there from Liz's family at all.
Okay. Well, that to me says a lot.
Me too. Me too. So we know Sergio worked for his father, Oscar Barraza. Oscar had several affairs during the course of his marriage with Margarita and was also very bad with money. He was so bad with money that a couple of Sergio's paychecks had bounced. Obviously, this was cause for concern with Sergio and Liz especially seemed disturbed by it. So
Yeah.
is it possible that Oscar could have wanted Liz out of the picture and or wanted his son to get the life insurance money? And there are reports that Sergio himself suggested this idea to authorities that, hey,
Oh,
perhaps you should look at my father. He
yikes.
did he did allegedly say that the person I'm seeing in the video is definitely not my dad.
I think that's a hired hand anyway. So the
Sure.
person pulling the puppet strings could be really anyone.
Right. And if you're interested in more theories surrounding Oscar, I suggest you hop over to Reddit. There's a lot of really interesting stuff there. Again, nothing I can share here because it can't be substantiated. I don't want to just share rumors. But if what is being shared over there is true, it's very interesting. And I have reason to believe it probably is accurate. But again, unless I can completely verify it, I don't want to report it. But if you're interested, do more research on Oscar. I think we can definitely rule out a robbery because the murderer took nothing from the scene. I mentioned that when I first watched the video, I thought the killer looked like they were wearing a hospital gown. We know Liz
Yeah.
spent a lot of time at the hospital. Could someone have not liked her there? Or someone been suffering from some kind of a mental breakdown or something? And, for whatever reason, had it out for Liz. I think that's pretty far fetched. There's no evidence that anyone.
This is a pretty extreme act. I can't imagine a casual person thinking through this unless they truly are just deranged.
I think I know who's behind this. And again, I don't. This is what most of the time we share what we think happened. This is when I don't really feel comfortable saying I think it was this person because again, I'm I'm basing that on stuff that I can't verify.
And
But
knowing that the authorities are withholding information, and I'm not arguing they're doing the wrong thing. That may be absolutely what they need to be doing at this point, especially if they feel like there's a chance of it leading to a conviction of whoever did this. But it is hard when you know there are missing pieces of the puzzle.
and I don't know that they were withholding. I just feel like with as much evidence as we do have, I feel like they know more. It's really hard for me to accept the fact that we have this much evidence. We have a vehicle, we have an assailant, we have all of this different footage, we have a pretty small suspect list if we are going on the idea that only someone who knew about the garage sale could have been responsible. Now, if we take that off the table, it changes things. But if that's what we're looking at, we know there's only a few people who knew about the garage sale.
I'm not convinced it had anything to do with the garage sale, knowing what I know
Oh,
now,
tell
because,
me.
well, Friday was a work day and Liz would have typically gone to work. But what if Sergio typically left earlier than her in the morning? Is it
Okay.
possible that the garage sale was just a total coincidence and this person was planning on knocking on the door and shooting Liz? If it was typical that Sergio always would have left before her, maybe they just waited for the truck to leave, him and his work truck to leave, and then they plan on, assassinating her anyway. It just so happened there was also a garage sale. And again, I have the feeling that this was some kind of hired person, but whoever hired them, maybe they didn't even know anything about the garage sale.
Stephanie, I have not heard that presented anywhere, this idea that you've just shared with us, but it makes total sense. Actually, you raised some really good points because who's to say that you're right, that they didn't have a different plan and they just got lucky, for lack of a better word, that she was already outside?
Which would also describe the links that they went to put on a costume, if that's what they did, because maybe they're assuming they're going to be up at the front door in front of a Ring camera. And so in that case, the costume would have been even more important, because as it is now, the footage that we have is kind of far off. Even if the person wasn't wearing a costume, I don't know that they would be readily identifiable, truly, from the footage that I'm looking at. Maybe there would be a higher chance, but definitely if you're up at somebody's Ring doorbell, you're going to be able to make out their face unless they're in a pretty clever disguise. So to me, I'm thinking maybe it was all coincidence and this garage sale is almost like a red herring.
Well, and if that's the case, and like I said, I can't think of any reason why that couldn't be a possibility. That certainly changes things. It was the garage sale that hung me up. Just if only a handful of people knew about it, then we have to look at those handful of people. But yeah, if we're opening it up to maybe they didn't know that, yeah, that certainly changes things. And I think that is a great thought.
Yeah, because he left pretty early in the morning. I think that's pretty early I know I don't know what his commute was or where he was going or any of those things, but I mean, he left before 7 a.m. There's a very high likelihood that she didn't have to leave as early and would have typically left a little later, again, which would have left an opportunity for a hit. Just kind of my thought process. What's curious, though, is that still doesn't necessarily spell out who would have wanted her dead this badly. Like, what did she know? What had she done? And at this point, I'm not hearing anything.
Right. Well, I will say, in regards to Sergio leaving, he was driving a white passenger van. Oh, no, I'm sorry, a white panel van. So,
Right.
that's like a big work van. It's a distinctive vehicle. So
Sure.
I do think his vehicle would be easy to track. So, okay, he definitely left. So,
Oh, absolutely. And it's not a van. It's not like they're two personal vehicles and Liz would have just hopped in the panel van.
right,
It's clear if that has left the driveway, it's him.
right.
It's
Yeah.
Sergio.
Now, you talk about the costume, the disguise. Let's talk about those knee-high boots, the white knee-high boots that authorities believe this person is wearing. Many
Okay.
people believe those boots could be a part of a stormtrooper's costume.
Oh, here I'm thinking go-go, but no, Stormtrooper probably seems to fit.
To me, they look like, well, first of all, I didn't see boots until somebody said, I've learned I'm really not the best at deciphering muffled audio. Or, I mean, here I think this person's leaning on something when in reality they're handing something. Like, you don't want me on that team.
We
Where
all
I'm
have our strengths, Cynthia. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, Cynthia. I think it's okay to admit to them.
right. So I fully admit that's not where I shine. But so I don't know that I would have noticed boots until somebody said, "Hey, it looks like they're wearing white boots." And even after being told that, I envision them as go-go boots. However, some people have mentioned, it could have been part of a stormtrooper's costume. They also wear white tall boots.
Yeah,
So
that's
that
true.
brings us to, is it possible someone from the 501st Legion had it out for Liz? And I will tell you
Mm.
that, authorities obviously looked into this. Apparently, there was at least one person, a woman in the Legion who they had some drama, they had some history. That person was looked into and ruled out. So it didn't seem enough to be a motive for murder. There was something about like a Christmas photo that Liz was in charge of choosing for a newspaper or some kind of publication, and the photo she chose focused on her legion, and it was supposed to be two legions put together, but she used the one of just her legion, and so then the other legion was really upset by it, and there was a lot of drama. But motive for murder?
Yeah, that seems extreme. You know what I mean? Like,
That
in
seems
this
extreme.
person, enough that someone would go out and pay another person, again, in my opinion, but would go out and pay someone to kill another person and or would go out and shoot someone in the face.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this isn't just like, I'm mad at you, so I'm going to shoot you and run away, but like, I'm going to pump you with bullets and shoot you point blank in the face. I mean, that is anger.
Yes. Yes. Like, yeah, I have no better words than what you just used. It's just, there was one goal and one goal at all, and that was to kill Liz.
Yes, absolutely. It's extreme. In my opinion, this is an extreme murder, an extreme killing. Now, I don't know, the stormtrooper boots, maybe that indicates it was somebody that she knew personally. I'm still leaning more towards this is somebody that was hired based on the vans circulating in the area and, those kinds of things. But yeah, this is still very strange.
According to Liz's family, there was nobody who didn't like Liz. So regardless, whether it's the 501st Legion, somebody from the hospital, somebody from work, according to her family, she had no enemies. Now, again, online, I've seen people saying, well, everybody has enemies. So I thought, is that true? Is that accurate? And I don't know. I think it's possible to have no enemies. I'm sure there's people who don't like me, but I don't know. Like you said, this is just so extreme that I feel like for someone to want her dead, I feel like there should be some idea of someone who really didn't like her, if that's the case. According to her family,
Yeah.
there's none. There was the idea maybe someone was fixated on Liz or Sergio. There have been confirmed cases of women being stalked at events like Comic-Con and things like that, which are the types of events that obviously Liz and Sergio enjoyed going to. But again, no real evidence to point to that. And if she was being stalked, it wasn't somebody in that truck that's been following her around and stalking her. Because remember, nobody recognized that truck. Nobody'd seen it before.
Right.
So I think I've hinted around several times in this episode. It is my opinion, just my opinion. I personally think the police know more than they're sharing with us. I think they have a pretty good idea who they think did this and maybe just don't have the evidence to back it up. And honestly, I really don't even know why I feel that way. There's no one thing that makes me feel that way. Maybe it's just the fact that we do have so much evidence here, footage, the truck, all of these things. And yet the idea that we don't know who did it just seems so impossible. But I personally wouldn't be surprised if when this case is solved, and I absolutely think this case is solvable. I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out to be someone she knew in some way. Maybe not a close friend, maybe not a family member, but someone in one of her circles who was behind her murder. If you know anything about the murder of Elizabeth Barraza, please call Houston Crime Stoppers at 713-222-TIPS. There's a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of a suspect. And you can also contact the Harris County Sheriff's Office at 713-274-9100.
Oh, gosh. I feel like this case is so solvable, and the fact that it hasn't been is very frustrating.
It kind of, to me, at least in this regard, feels a little similar to like the Delphi murders, where the public had no idea what was going on, but behind the scenes, authorities were working to get their guy, who they pretty much, I feel like they knew much earlier than we did who was behind it. And that's kind of how I feel this case is going to go. I could be wrong, but it's 6 years old. Her murder, we just passed the 6-year anniversary of her murder. So 6 years is a long time. And at the same time, it's not so long ago that the idea that we could solve this seems impossible to me.
You and I are very good about looking out for each other's mental health as we travel this road together, because there are things that are triggering, and we're always checking in with each other just as a kindness and helping each other through this. And you had told me, hey, when you look at the video, it's a woman getting murdered. I mean, it's a sensitive video. And so between the two of us, we said for our listeners, let's give them a censored version so they can see what we're talking about without having to see the whole video. Anyway, I'm not to belabor the point, but while going to look at how I could censor the video, I saw several YouTube videos of interviews that detectives had done about Liz Barraza's case. And I will tell you, I was very encouraged by how many television shows and morning shows and interviews that they were willing to do to help further this case along. So I certainly can say, at least from an outsider's perspective, I do think they're keeping this case alive, and they certainly have not forgotten about Liz Barraza.
Correct. I haven't heard anything negative at all about how her case has been handled. I think it's very much still on their minds and being worked on. And, again, I've read things that I can't verify, but reports that they're traveling across the country to interview people and talk to people of interest. I definitely think if there is a way that they can get this case solved, they're going to do everything in their power.
Yeah, I think that's
I think it's
encouraging.
one we can do. I think it's stuff I feel in my gut that we'll be doing an update on this one day. I certainly hope and pray for her family.
I really hope so. If nothing else, to take away suspicion from innocent parties. I can only imagine being Sergio, again, assuming he is innocent, which, I'm feeling kind of in my gut he is, but I could be proven wrong. But I feel it must be very difficult if you are an innocent spouse to walk around knowing there's an air of suspicion about you.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. And I think that's why I'm being so careful to say who I think it maybe could be. And for the record, I do not believe Sergio is involved because I think how awful if not only do you lose someone in such a tragic way, like the Ramseys, John Benet
Right.
Ramsey, not only did they lose their daughter, but then they've spent their entire lives defending themselves being called a murderer. I just can't imagine how awful that would be. And I really never want to be that person who does that to an innocent party.
Yeah. So truly naming her true killer, it's multiple victories, right? Not only justice and perpetrator being punished, but also removing this stigma and heaviness, of from the innocent.
Right. It'll be good all the way around.
Yeah.
When it happens, when it's
When it
solved.
happens, I like that. We're just going to manifest it. I love it.
That's right.
I
That's
love
right.
it.
Well, this one's been a heavy one. So let me bring you up by talking about the branch of hope.
That's right.
This is the first episode of the month, which means this is our Branch of Hope case. And I think Liz would be very happy to know that the Dark Oak has chosen to highlight the Peter Mayhew Foundation as our February 2025 Branch of Hope recipient. And as we discussed in the episode, the Peter Mayhew Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization devoted to the alleviation of disease, pain, suffering, and the financial toll brought on by life's traumatic events. By providing its available resources directly to deserving children and adults in need, they assist numerous charitable organizations in order to promote and boost their effectiveness and provide support where needed. And one of the many examples of the work the Peter Mayhew Foundation has done is the story of a little boy named Braden. The 501st Legion and the Rebel Legion put out a call for patches and Star Wars swag to brighten the hospital stay of little Braden. Braden had been waiting for a liver transplant and wasn't able to leave the hospital while he waited. That's no fun for anybody, but especially not for a child. But thankfully, an anonymous donor was a match for Braden. This donor donated part of their own liver so that Braden could get a new lease on life. And the Peter Mayhew Foundation helped contribute to Braden's medical expenses and to help his family stay with him while he went through surgery and recovery. And during that time, Braden was an inspiration to everyone around him, making the other kids laugh in his surgical ward while he recovered. The force is definitely with him. The 501st Legion, where Liz felt so happy, is a friend of the Peter Mayhew Foundation. The organizations work together to help others in need. So I know Liz would be proud that we're shining a spotlight on both of those organizations today.
Wow. Well, you picked a really good one. And as horrible as this is, I think, it's like Mr. Rogers always said, in every tragic situation, you always need to find the helpers. And this is such a story that is so full of helpers.
It really is. Yeah. And I needed it. My family's walking through something right now. And so encouraging to me to know that there are people out there who see the pain of others and care and want to do what they can to alleviate it. So I just think that's so special and so beautiful and something I admire and something I hope to be more like, even on a personal
Absolutely.
level.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, good stuff. If you want to be a part of our Branch of Hope Foundation, you can do so by joining our Patreon. A portion of your subscription, which literally starts at $2 a month, guys, which enables you to download content. So we put out an episode every single month, a full-length episode, and a couple other fun Dark Oak things for $2 a month. And a portion of that is going to go to a nonprofit organization to support the helpers. And we think that's such a win-win, genuinely. Every dollar we make, we are so grateful for. It helps us as creators to keep going. And then we get to share that love with others. So if, again, that sounds like something that is a fit for you, we'd love for you to check out the Patreon. It's $2, $5, and $10. $10 a month, guys. That's it. So check that out. You can also visit our website to see other nonprofits that we have helped over our last year and a half and see if one of those might be something that you want to give to on a personal basis as well.
That's right.
So come back next week. We've got a really cool collaboration coming up with Coffee and Cases. Allison is going to tell us a story of a missing Native American woman. And if you know on this one, cases about Native American women especially are rarely covered and rarely looked into. And we're so pleased to be a part of spreading the word about this particular victim. So come back next week.
We'll see you then. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. This episode of The Dark Oak was created, researched, written, recorded, hosted, edited, published, and marketed by Cynthia and Stephanie of Just Us Gals Productions, and made possible by you, our shiver-seeking listener. Special thanks goes to Justice Himes for our incredible artwork and Ryan Crete for our amazing music.